There's a few things I wanted to talk about in regards to the Leafs and I guess where they stand right now. I wanted to talk about where the scoring is coming from because that has been a major conversation over the last couple weeks. And I do think it has hit a turning point over this last week in particular. And then there's also the lines because we've seen a change in the lines over the last week, which I am not a fan of. And then defense, I'll touch upon quickly. But in regards to where the scoring is coming from, there has been a lot of conversation about the fact that the core four has been accredited most of our goals. The core four has scored most of our goals. Not a secret. Whatever. It's true. I'm not saying it's not true. So there was a point up until a couple weeks ago, the game against Philly, where the core four had 16, 15, something like that. Let's say 16 goals in a row for the team. Just the core four. That was a concern because what's the point? That's a concern because we don't want to be the Oilers. Let's say that. That's a fair comparison. That was a concern because we don't want to be a one-line team like the Oilers. But aside from that, it was a concern because you need depth scoring and because we know, I guess, how scary it can be or how much it can negatively impact the team when it matters most. Speaking of or referring to the playoffs. So seeing that the depth scoring wasn't there, I guess, scared a lot of people, rightfully so. But over these last 2 weeks, we have seen a shift. Kasha was the start of that shift. He broke the core four streak in that game against Philly. And since then, the core four has not been the only source of scoring. They have still been the major or the main source of scoring, but not the only source. Mostly it has been the third line that has stepped in and provided help in the scoring department, which is good to see because that third line has been absolutely insane. But the fact that the core four still has majority of our scoring is not an issue. And it's not an issue because if you look at our goals for, we're 26th in the league. It's 2.53 per game. That's an issue. And that is the bigger issue here. It's not that the core four is getting most of our scoring because that's fine. That's what it should be. It should be Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander getting majority of our goals. It should be them scoring majority of our goals because that's what they're paid to do and because being on the first and second line, that's what they are expected to do. So there's no issue there with them getting majority of our goals. The main issue is that we are not scoring enough goals. And that's not to say that we just need more scoring from the third and fourth lines. Because over the last couple weeks, the scoring has become more balanced. Not only with just the third line, but also with defense. Defense has stepped up over the last couple weeks and has contributed to scoring as well. So it is starting to become more balanced across the team, across the board. So it's not to say that that the third and fourth lines need to start scoring because they are scoring. The issue is that the whole team just needs to score more. We just need to get more goals. We can't be winning games with 2 goals. We need to be scoring at least 3 or 4 goals per game. Having one game every month where we score 5 goals, yeah, it's sweet, but that should be happening more often. It should be the games that are 1-0 or 2-1 that happen less often, and the games where we're scoring 3, 4, 5 goals should be happening more often. And that's why when people look at, let's say this past week we scored 5 goals. Let's just say for argument's sake that the core four had scored 3 of those 5 goals. Everyone would be saying it should have been the core four getting 2 and the third line getting 1 and the fourth line getting 1 and defense getting 1, whatever. They would be saying that's what it should have been. But that's not true. Having our core four score 3 out of 5 goals, the issue is that we need to be scoring more goals. We need more scoring from everywhere. Not just the third and fourth lines. We need more scoring from everywhere. So that's why I kind of think there's a bigger issue at play here where we just need to score more. That's just basically it, because the scoring is becoming balanced. If you look at the scoring over the last couple weeks, it is becoming balanced. So that's why I'm thinking that the bigger issue here is that we just need to be scoring more. So I think the conversation just needs to switch. That we just, overall, we need to score more. Not that the whole onus is on the third and fourth lines to start picking it up, because they have been picking it up. So that's that. Also, though, the goals need to start coming from other places too. 5-on-5, if they're not coming, where do they need to come from? The power play. That's where they need to start coming from. Because, yeah, our power play is 7th in the league. So comparatively, it looks good. It does. Individually, as a team, not good. This past week, it was 2 goals on 9 chances. That's not something that should be happening throughout an entire week. So that's where change needs to start to happen. And, you know, there's games like the one against the Rangers that we just had, or against the Pens, where, and I said this in my game recap video, where getting a power play goal would have been super helpful in both of those games. For different reasons, but it would have been super helpful. So scoring needs to come from other places, as well as just more scoring in general. Also, the more scoring in general is going to come from putting the lines back to the way they were. I don't know why Keefe decided to put them back to how they were at the beginning of the season. I don't know why Ritchie was put back on the first. That boggles my mind, and I literally have no idea why he was put back there, because we'll go through all the lines. So if we look at the first line, Matthews, Marner, Ritchie. 2 problems with that line. One is that Ritchie should not have been put on the first line. There was nothing that he did that would make Keefe say, you know what? Ritchie deserves to be on the first line, which bumped Bunting to the 4th. What? Bunting does not deserve to be on the 4th line, and Ritchie does not deserve to be on the first. So I don't know where that switch came from. And the other issue that I have with that line is Matthews and Marner together. They have not been working. When they were together at the beginning of the season, that whole line that was together did not work. Matthews and Marner together did not work, has not been working. They don't do anything for each other anymore. They don't do anything for each other. They don't do anything for Ritchie. Ritchie doesn't do anything for them. Ritchie's place is on the 4th line. That's where his skill is more valued, because he doesn't give the opportunities to Matthews and Marner that someone like Bunting did, or even Kerfoot. Anyway, back to my second issue with the line. Matthews and Marner are not doing anything for each other anymore. And then that brings me to the second line, it has been Kerfoot, Tavares, and Nylander. My only issue with that line is Nylander. He should be with Matthews, and Marner should be with Tavares. I just think the core 4 was performing a lot better when that was the setup. And then going to the third line, there is absolutely no need to split up that third line ever again, which makes me nervous for when Mikheyev gets back, but that's another issue. But whether it's been Kerfoot, Kampf, or Kasha, or Engvall, Kampf, and Kasha, that line has been on fire. I don't want to see them split up ever. Last episode, if you listen to my podcast, I was trashing this third line. But I also admitted that I probably wasn't watching them the way that I should have been watching them. So I did admit that. But both defensively and offensively, I now fully understand why Keefe relies on them so much. Every time there's a defensive face-off, every time the Leafs get trapped in their own zone, Keefe turns to this third line. And I never understood, but now I understand, because 90% of the time when that third line is put in the defensive zone, when we're stuck or when there's a face-off, 90% of the time they do their job. They do their job to get the puck out with a smooth outlet, a smooth transition, and they either turn it into a goal going the other way, or they turn it into an amazing chance, a quality chance, or they get a cycle going with multiple chances, which ends up with a face-off in the offensive zone, which is when the first or second line get that quality zone time because of all their work on the third line. So they generate that opportunity to be able to say, they got out, they saved our asses in the defensive zone, they got out, they got a cycle in the offensive zone, and now the first and second line, where they thrive the most in the offensive zone, they're able to get that quality time because of their work. So they do a lot. They contribute a lot to goals too. This past week, it was just 1 goal and 2 assists, but it was a low-scoring week. The week before that, it was 4 goals and 3 assists. And 3 of those 4 goals belonged to Kase. So this third line just can't be split up, ever. And then the fourth line, it was Bunting, Spezza, and Simmonds. And the issue that I have with that is Bunting, who should be on the first or second. Ritchie should be on the fourth. Simmonds has been doing great, but he was doing great before Bunting was there, when Ritchie was there. So it was not like the change of moving Bunting to the fourth line made that line so much better, where you're saying, I don't want to split them up. They're performing the same. So I don't think moving Bunting would harm any of those guys on that line, because they were doing fine before. So that's my take on the lines. I really do think they need to be put back, especially after this last week. Yeah, they came out with 2 out of the 3 wins, but there were things that happened in these games that are cause for concern. Mainly the low scoring and the low capitalization on the chances that they did have. That's the main concern, and I think switching the lines will help them gel differently and get something else going. And then my point on the defense was just that they've been inconsistent. They are contributing more to score. Mainly it's Riley and Muzzin that are contributing more to the scoring, the goals and the assists. So Sandin and Liljegren and Hall too, they need to step up a bit more. Brody I get because he's more defensive, but they just need to be more consistent, because there's games like the one on Monday where they did great. Then there's games where on against the Rangers where they did all right. They almost gave up the game. And then there's games like the one on Saturday where it's like, did we even have defense in the game? So for me, it's just that they're very inconsistent. It's not that they don't have the capability or the skill, because they do. We've seen it. We've seen games where they've blown out other teams, and defensively they've just been unreal. So we know that they can do it, and we've seen them do it. It's just, it's not consistent at all. So they'll go 2 games, great defense. Then they'll go 1 game, bad defense. Then they'll go 1 game, good defense, 2 games, bad It's like, it's all over the place in terms of consistency, and that's where they need to improve. And where they can improve is in becoming more consistent is the giveaways, because those have been atrocious the last, I want to say, couple weeks. And the outlets, which lead to the giveaways, the work in the neutral zone, and the odd man rushes. That's probably the biggest one I can think of. Way too many odd man rushes. Mostly it happens in the beginning of the game, and then after they kind of smarten up. But those odd man rushes, like the amount that they give up per game is not... I don't even have words. It just shouldn't be happening, because yeah, Campbell stands on his head for us, but there's going to become a point where he can't do that anymore. That's what happened to Anderson and all our other goalies before that. Yeah, they can save your ass, but it comes to a point where it's like, it's not possible for them to keep doing this game in and game out multiple times a game. So those odd man rushes where a D-man pinches in and then a forward is supposed to go back and cover, most of the time I've noticed that they don't. And if that does happen and an odd man rush starts the other way, I've noticed that the wingers skate back kind of lazily. They don't do so with as much aggression as they should, and that's another issue that should be addressed. So there are those little things here and there I think they can work on, which will improve the consistency. So the odd man rushes, better judgment on the blue line, like should I pinch, should I not, And then the giveaways and the work in the neutral zone. Not 100% of it is the fault of the defense, though. Like I was just saying with the pinching in, they could make smarter decisions pinching in, but it's also, the onus is also on the forwards to know to get back. With the outlets into the offensive zone, yeah, part of it's on defense to make smarter outlets and smarter passes, but some of the onus is on the forwards in the neutral zone to handle the puck properly in the neutral zone, which they also haven't been doing. So it's those little things they can improve on that can definitely help them become more consistent, because we know that they can, because they've done it before. So that wraps up this little summary on how the, I guess, where the different lines are standing and how the Leafs have been doing. Summary, we just need to score more. I think we need to score more, and the defense needs to be more consistent. I think those are the two main takeaways from this video, and that the scoring is becoming balanced, and that's not, balancing the scoring isn't the issue anymore, it's just scoring more. That's the issue. That's the summary for the Leafs for this week. I hope you enjoyed it.